Mr. Speaker, thank you. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the topic of this special order.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm saddened and honored at the same time to be able to host alongside my California colleagues a special hour dedicated to the memory of Congressman Doug LaMalfa from California. As I looked at some of my notes here of the amazing things that he had accomplished and who he is and I realized that we're going to hear that over the next hour, and the thing that my team and I were reflecting on earlier today was all I wanted to share as we kick off this memorial to an amazing man was, as vice chair, I get to every week host an evening of floor time for my colleagues on a myriad of topics. Doug LaMalfa was here every single time. Every time we needed him to be here, he was here. But he was here whether we asked him or not. And most times, he was the only one. But tonight, when I asked my colleagues if they wanted to share a message on Doug, the reverse, it's a packed house. And that's all I wanted to share, was to think about the legacy that he's left and the importance that he has to so many of our colleagues. He was always here for me, and we're all here today for his family. And hopefully they're able to take some comfort and solace in his memory as we share this. We've got a lot of folks that want to share a message, and we're going to kick it right off, and I'm just going to go around the room and start calling on people as we move forward. We're going to first hear, of course, from the California delegation. And with that, I yield time that he may consume to the distinguished colleague from Mr. Ken Calvert from the great state of California.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the sudden passing of our close friend and colleague, Doug LaMalfa, has caused both shock and sadness throughout the entire House of Representatives. We lost a friend and a colleague. His Northern California constituents lost their tireless advocate in the House. And most tragically, his family lost a husband, a father, and a grandfather. Doug was a proud family man. He and his wife, Jill, have 4 beautiful children. He just recently became a grandfather. Doug was a 4th-generation rice farmer, a contributor to our state's important role in producing the food that sustains America. His experience as a farmer provided the foundation for his future as a legislator, both in Sacramento and here in Washington, D.C. It comes as no surprise that in 2024, Doug was unanimously elected to serve as the chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus, one of the largest congressional membership groups on Capitol Hill, focusing on rural policy and issues that affect the West and beyond. Doug left an indelible mark on this institution and the people he got to know along the way. For those who knew him, they understood his unique love of nicknames, movie quotes, and NASCAR. They understood his dislike of food waste, smartphones, and ketchup on hot dogs. Doug's sense of humor, collegial manner, his expertise will be sorely missed. While he's no longer with us, Doug's significant contributions to agriculture and rural policy will endure long after his passing. I'll very much miss my friend and my colleague. My thoughts, our prayers with his wife, Jill, the entire LaMalfa family, his friends, and his staff. God bless you, Doug.
Thank you. I now yield 2 minutes to the distinguished colleague and very close friend of Mr. LaMalfa, Mr. Tom Clintock from California.
Mr. Speaker, the Romans had a saying, tempus fugit, memento mori. Time is fleeting, remember death. It reminds us that life is not a gift, it's just a loan. And when it comes due, all that matters is what we have given to others. Doug LaMalfa was the kindest and most sincere person that I have encountered in more than 40 years of public service. He passionately defended the working men and women of the rural community where he was born and raised and grew up, but he always did it with a good-natured smile and a quiet, respectful manner. Just 3 weeks ago, on December 15th, I took my seat on an early Washington-bound flight from Sacramento, about 8 rows behind Doug. When I looked up, he was standing there in the aisle with an outstretched hand. He leaned over and he quietly said to me, "Tom, I know this is a hard day for you, and I want you to know that my prayers are with you and Lori." You see, that was the 4th anniversary of my dear wife Lori's death. And how he knew that and remembered it and offered such warm comfort on such a cold morning tells you what a truly caring and wonderful man he was. And now he's gone, for time is fleeting. But death can't take the kindnesses and memories that he gave us all, or the wisdom and common sense and achievements that he gave our country. Our nation, our state, and our community have all suffered an irreplaceable loss, and rural America has lost its most tireless and effective advocate. But most of all, we've lost a good man, a very good man. And to his family, I can only say that you're not alone in your grief. Your community and your country grieve with you. Yield back.
Thank you. I now yield time to the gentleman from California, Mr. David Valadao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor my dear friend, fellow farmer, and colleague, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. I've known Doug for about 16 years, going back to our time together in the state legislature. From day one, his commitment to the people of Northern California, especially those in agriculture communities, was clear. In Congress, Doug was one of the fiercest advocates for wildfire mitigation, disaster recovery, California water issues, and farmers and ranchers who keep this country fed. As chairman of the Western Caucus, he fought tirelessly for domestic energy production, public land access in rural communities that way too often get overlooked. But beyond his lasting legacy as a public official, Doug was my friend. We served together in the state legislature, and one year on my birthday, he stopped by my office, not with a card, but with a bag of rice, and just a little Post-it note that said happy birthday. So I brought that bag home, gave it to my mom, and she made Portuguese rice pudding for him, and I brought it back, and the next week he brought me another bag of rice, and still to this day brought it up that he wanted more rice. Doug just had one of those sense of humors that you loved. Doug was a friend to all and someone you could always count on for leadership, loyalty, and just a good laugh. He will be deeply missed in the halls of Congress. My prayers are with his wife Jill, his children, and all his family and loved ones during this incredibly difficult time. Thank you, and I yield back.
Special hour. Thanks to the gentleman from California, and on to yielding time to the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with a very heavy heart to honor our colleague, Doug LaMalfa. Doug was larger than life, but what I will remember most is how he lived big in the small moments, with warmth, attention to detail, and genuine kindness. He was the only member of Congress who ever called me by my Korean name, Kim Young-ok. He didn't have to remember it. He never needed to do that, but that small, thoughtful gesture meant the world to me and spoke volumes about who Doug was. Doug was a strong conservative leader who served with a deep love for our country and brought the heartland to Washington, not the other way around. As a fourth-generation rice farmer, he never forgot who he worked for: farmers, families, and rural communities who are too often ignored by Washington. He'll be missed. We will all miss him. My heart is with his family, his staff, and all who are mourning this tremendous loss. Thank you, and I yield back.
Kim Young-ok 누나, 감사합니다. 수고 많이 하세요. Take that, Doug. I now yield time to Mr. Jay Obernolte from California.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise with an incredibly heavy heart to honor the life of my friend, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. Doug was one of the most effective members of this chamber. He was deeply passionate about issues that affected his constituents in Northern California. And as most of the members of this chamber know, we all have little silos where people come to us for advice. I always could count on Doug to give me the straight scoop on anything related to water or agriculture or rural America. And that's why we elected him as the chairman of the Western Caucus 2 years ago, and he did a phenomenal job in that role. I will miss his service there. I will also miss the man that he was. He was an incredibly decent man, a man of exceptionally high moral character. Everyone that knew Doug would remark on his authenticity. When you met Doug, what you saw is what you got. He was a man of deep kindness, never had a cruel or unkind word for anyone in the years that I knew him. He was a man of incredible humility, and anyone in this chambers knows that we could use some more of that in here. But above all, Mr. Speaker, I will miss my friend. I'll miss our conversation about cars. He was a car guy, I'm a car guy. I would tease him every summer when we came back into session that he was restoring a Di Tommaso Pantera, and I would ask him, Doug, what progress did you make on the Pantera this summer? And he'd hang his head and say nothing. I'll miss playing Galaga with him. A little known fact about Doug LaMalfa, a fierce competitor at Galaga. And above all, I will miss our conversations. So I am honored to be here joining my colleagues in saying farewell to Doug and to honoring his life. Godspeed, my friend. We will miss you. I yield back.
Mr. Fong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the life and legacy of my friend and colleague, Doug LaMalfa. Doug was a steadfast champion of rural California and for the issues that matter most to millions of Americans across the West, starting in the California legislature to the halls of Congress. He fought for water storage, forest management. He fought for energy abundance. He fought for the farmer. He fought for common sense. I had the privilege of serving alongside him on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and as a fellow member of the Western Caucus during his time as chairman. He would always greet me with a big smile by the nickname, the Fongersman. Over the years, I was fortunate to be mentored by Doug. He was a great role model and friend. His guidance, leadership, and example left a lasting impact on me and on so many others who had the honor of working with him. Doug will be remembered for his deep love for his family, his faith, and core principles, his unwavering dedication to his community, his humility, and his enduring legacy as a leader and lawmaker. I am personally grateful for his mentorship and know he will be profoundly missed by all who knew him. I certainly will vow to honor Doug's memory by continuing to champion the values that we both share that unite California's Central Valley to the rural communities like Doug's in Northern California. I will continue fighting for rural priorities in Congress just as Doug did. Amanda and I are praying for his wife Jill, his family and loved ones, and his staff during this difficult time. His absence leaves a void that will never truly be filled. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. I now yield time to the gentleman from California, Mr. Kevin Kiley.
Mr. Speaker, Doug LaMalfa was my neighbor. Our districts bordered one another. This was true during my time in the state legislature as well. And the region of our state that he represented is an area where people often feel like their voices are not heard in the corridors of power, in places like Sacramento and Washington, D.C. Doug LaMalfa made it his mission to make sure that their voices were heard. He used every opportunity he had to make sure their voices were heard. But he didn't just speak for the communities that he represented. He advocated, and he used every policy tool available to see that their values were reflected in policy here. He was a leader in our delegation and in the whole chamber on issues like water and forest management and agriculture. And that leadership, of course, culminated in his chairmanship of the Western Caucus, the second largest caucus in the entire House of Representatives. I know we are all still so shocked and in grief over his loss, but Doug LaMalfa's legacy in the North State will be felt for generations to come. I yield back.
Thank you. And I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from southwestern-ish California, Mr. Biggs.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today with a heavy heart to honor the life and legacy of my friend and colleague, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. As you know, Doug was a happy warrior who cared immensely about his country, his state, and the people he served. A few years ago, he took time out of his busy schedule to travel with me to Arizona to better understand the border crisis and the serious impact it was having on my state as well as his own. Doug was always willing to listen, learn, engage on the issues that matter most. He was a most curious man. I thoroughly enjoyed working with him on a wide range of policies and challenges that uniquely affect the West and the hardworking communities we both represent. Doug was a true friend. He'll be deeply missed in this Congress and beyond. My team and I continue to pray for Doug, his family, and for all who loved him during this particularly difficult time. May God bless Doug LaMalfa's memory. Rest in peace, my friend. I yield.
Thank you. And I now yield time to the gentleman from California, Mr. Darrell Issa.
Thank you. A lot can be said about my friend and colleague, my Western Caucus chair, but today was a special day for us. We had lunch today as California members, and Doug paid for it, because every week somebody sponsors it. And his death was so sudden that it literally had been prepaid and it arrived. And we sat there thinking of the person who had the best joke every week, who had a constant positive sense of humor, even about dire times. Talked about, not long ago, about how much he got done during the shutdown and what it was like to actually meet with his constituents multiple days in a row, day after day. That was Doug LaMalfa, a farmer, a familyman, but most importantly, somebody that could always find the positive and the funny about whatever we were doing. We're a body of 431 right now. At our best, we're a body of 435. But it's the one that we're missing that can make a difference, and that was Doug. He will be missed for a very long time by all of us. And with that, I yield back and thank the gentleman for the opportunity to speak on my friend.
Thank you, sir. And we will continue on through the great state of California with voices from bipartisan voices in support and remembering Mr. LaMalfa. We'll go to Ms. Lofgren from the great state of California.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Speaker, there is mourning across the aisle and across the state of California. I chair the California Democratic delegation, and we are deeply saddened by the loss of Doug LaMalfa. It was a pleasure to serve with Doug since his election in 2013. He was a man who cared so deeply for the communities that he represented in California's 1st District. As has been said, he's a 4th-generation rice farmer. He was one of the strongest voices in this body for rural America because he knew firsthand the struggles that our agricultural sector is facing. He and I worked very closely together on the Bipartisan Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which would provide stabilization for farm workers, farmers, and the ag sector. And he added so much because he really knew how farming worked and what would work and what wouldn't work, and he was a collaborator. We also introduced together the Bipartisan Utility Resilience and Reliability Act that really was common sense safety standards and to minimize power outages. Now, Doug and I didn't agree on everything. I'm a proud Democrat. He was a proud Republican, but he was always approachable, and he was a colleague with whom you could disagree without being disagreeable. It's a quality that members should strive to emulate here. He was a good man, friendly, with a sense of humor, a gentle giant. Our deepest condolences are with his wife, Jill, their children, his staff. It always hurts to lose a friend and a colleague, but I know that Doug's legacy will be remembered by all of us and the Californians he so proudly served and served with. With that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And I now yield time to the gentleman on his committee that he cared so much about, of natural resources, the ranking member, Mr. Huffman.
I thank the gentleman from Utah.
There were a few people in the Congress that tangled with Doug LaMalfa more than me. There's probably some competition for that honor among House Democrats, but I was certainly right up there. And yet I can tell you, as we honor Doug today, I know plenty of people that disagreed with him. I don't know anybody that disliked him. And so when you hear these qualities about his authenticity, his warm sense of humor, just how relatable he was, that is all very, very true. And I go back almost 20 years with Doug because we were in the state legislature together. So a lot has been said about his sense of humor, also very, very true. I want to just share something that I always think of with Doug because it speaks to the type of humor, which is really, I think, something that tells you about the man. There are plenty of people that have a great sense of humor at other people's expense. Doug LaMalfa had a very gentle and disarming sense of humor. And one of our colleagues together in the State Assembly was our former colleague and the current mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. I will always remember how Doug used to crack her up and me by calling her Bassomatic. That was the nickname, and his staffers back here are far too young to remember the Saturday Night Live skit in which Dan Aykroyd puts a bass in a blender and makes this gross smoothie and drinks it. It was funny. And that's just the kind of thing that Doug would pull up spontaneously and crack everyone up. I love that. And I will tell you, Karen Bass loved it too and liked it so much that she went up to Doug's district when she became Speaker of the Assembly. And I remember he just not only welcomed her there, this is this person he had very little in common with, a Southern California urban African-American member. They voted together almost never, but Doug gave her the VIP tour of his farm and of the Sacramento Valley and rice country, got her up in a combine, had her do things that I'm sure she will never forget. And I think he loved every minute of that. So that's how I'm going to remember Doug. He was a great guy, and I'm certainly thinking and sending best wishes to his family and everyone who loved him.
The list is very long of the individuals on this side of the aisle that like to tangle with the ranking member himself as well, but also very much like him. Thank you for those awesome words. To my colleague on Ways and Means Committee, gentleman from California, Mr. Mike Thompson.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank you especially for holding this special order for someone who we're all going to miss, a really great guy. And I'm honored to be able to reflect a little bit on the life and the service of an extremely dedicated member of Congress, Doug LaMalfa. I served Northern California alongside of Doug from the day that he was sworn in to this body. And his area was an area that I represented when I was in the state Senate. And in Congress, we represented neighboring regions of our state. We shared many of the same challenges and worked together on issues that mattered deeply to the people that we both served. I was proud to work with him on bipartisan efforts to support our farmers and ranchers, to strengthen wildfire prevention, to build Sites Reservoir, and to address the growing home insurance crisis facing families across all of Northern California. He and I worked together to deliver over $500 million in tax relief to fire victims in our district that lost their homes, then had to sue in order to get the financial relief to rebuild their homes, only to find out that they were going to be taxed on that money that they got in the suit, which wasn't in itself enough to even rebuild their homes. And he was caring, and he was a terrific fighter for the folks that we work for in delivering this. He believed in practical solutions, and I always respected and appreciated his collaboration on the issues important to our constituents. I'm saddened by the loss of my longtime colleague and friend. Jan and I extend our deepest condolences and keep Doug's wife, Jill, their children and grandchild, and his devoted staff in our prayers during this very difficult time. Speaker, I yield back, and again, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, sir. To the gentleman from California, Mr. Costa. I yield 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues of mine, as we do what is fitting and appropriate, and that's honor the life of our colleague, a life well led, member of the House of Representatives who did such a good job on behalf of his constituents who he represented faithfully since coming to Congress in 2013. Doug and I knew each other before then. We had interactions on a number of issues that we were mutually passionate about, beginning with rural California and people who live in rural areas, which both reflected his and my background. He perhaps represented, if not one of the largest congressional districts by geography in California. A lot of northern and eastern California. And this are communities, I know a lot of my colleagues, when they think about California, they think of Los Angeles or the Bay Area. But we have a lot of parts of California where, the communities are a white spot in the middle of a major highway or, 400, 600 people. And Doug was a member's member and a representative who believed that his entire constituency was his passion. And so he would go to some of those remote areas to indicate and to listen on how he could be a better representative and make their views known here in our nation's capital. I served with him the entire time that I've been on the House Ag Committee through 3 different farm bill reauthorizations. And he was always willing to meet halfway. Of course, we understood the ag issues affecting California, and he was very proud to represent the Upper Sacramento River Valley and all the wonderful people there. When disaster struck his district with the wildfires, he was among the first to be there with the challenges of some of the floods in Lake Orville and Yuba areas. He was there. And he reminds us why we serve. Not only the passion, but the desire always to put our constituents first and to help people. And let that be a role model for all of us. Doug, we miss you. A life well led and a person who cared passionately about our country and about the people's house. May you rest in peace with your wife and your family. And we thank all of you for giving us an opportunity to serve with our friend, Doug LaMalfa. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, sir. To our final Californian for the evening, I yield a minute to Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you. I look at the photo and I'm going, Doug, for 12 years, you and I represented the Sacramento River. We developed a friendship based upon the work in part, but mostly upon sharing things. We'd get on the airplane to fly to Washington, and you had your seat all the time. We said hello, talked about what was coming on, and then going home. A friendship that was deep, meaningful, and there was plenty of work to do. The Sacramento River, most important river in California after the Colorado, it was yours. You had the upper, I had the lower part of it. And together we worked to protect the river, to protect the farmers, to protect the flow of water. It was good work. You did a good job. You were good in representing your district, in representing the very complex issues. I remember standing on one of the levees, and you were talking about your rice field. And I said, Doug, let me talk about my cows in my field. He said, okay, you go ahead, but I'm going to go first. You shared your knowledge with me and with others. You were good. You were really good at the work you did for your people. You were a quality representative. I miss you. I miss the work that we did together on the Sacramento River Valley and all of the issues that we had. A long list, to take another hour to go through them all. I miss you. Patty misses you, because she would get up from her seat and go back to your seat, which you always had on that plane, and the two of you would talk and share. I know your family misses you. I know your constituents miss you. Doug LaMalfa, you're going to be remembered by those of us that had the honor of working with you. I yield back.
Thank you. Special message. We'll now continue on to a close friend and colleague on Natural Resources Committee, Mr. Stauber from Minnesota. I yield a minute to you.
Thank you very much. You know, this week started out very difficult, losing Representative LaMalfa. I had the privilege of serving with him for 7 years and being on the Natural Resources Committee, and he also was chair of the Western Caucus this past year and did a wonderful job. And he was that gentle giant, Mr. Chair, that you could always count on. He was a person of reason, but as you got to know Doug, he was an even better person. He was a humble, Christian, faithful person. And you know what, Mr. Chair, we need more of that in this body, especially now. So we know that Doug is with his Savior. We know that his Savior chose his time earlier this week. But Doug is resting in eternity with the Almighty God, his Savior, and Jesus Christ. And to his wife, Jill, thanks for allowing him to serve, not only in the California legislature, but here in this body. Thanks for allowing him to travel, as Mr. Garamendi just said, all that way to and from the great state of California. Those long trips. He'd come in, you knew on Monday or Tuesday nights, the start of the session, when he'd come in here wearing some tattered clothes, a little bit unshoveled, but he had a long day. But he was here for the people of his district, and he left a legacy that we all should cherish and honor and remember. And that's why we're here today, Mr. Chair, honoring Doug with that smile. He always had a nickname for every one of us. So, Doug, I know you're resting in peace for eternity. But thank you for serving this great nation. Thank you for serving the great state of California in the way you did. You left a legacy. You helped all of us become better representatives. And to Jill, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your 4 children. God bless you, and take care of your families. Thank you.
I now yield a minute to the gentleman from Western Colorado, Mr. Jeff Hurd.
Mr. Speaker, our colleague Doug LaMalfa passed away on Monday, and I wanted to take just a minute, he would have liked that, to honor him the best way I know how, plainly. Doug believed that we should speak clearly, not in jargon. He had a whiteboard in his office labeled unacceptable words, and he meant it. Words like stakeholders, empower, and equity were banned. He thought government should sound more like the people it serves. He hated what I called LaMalfaisms, overcomplicated government explanations for simple things, like saying the transportation infrastructure is undergoing a temporary operational suspension pending structural optimization, instead of just saying the bridge is closed for repairs. Doug loved this institution, he loved the West, and he loved one-minute speeches. I'll miss his humor, his directness, and the clarity he brought to a town that too often hides behind big words. May he rest in peace. Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you. And to the gentleman from Mississippi, howdy doddy, Mr. Michael Guest.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to remember the life of my friend Doug LaMalfa, whom I would refer to as the gentle giant. Doug was known by all for his love of agriculture and the great outdoors. As chairman of the Western Caucus and as a California Republican, he was a rare breed on Capitol Hill. His time will always be remembered for his love of this great republic, a government that he believed in the founding fathers, the principles of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Mr. Speaker, I believe that there is a scripture in the Old Testament that captures the impact that Doug had on the life of his friends and colleagues. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Doug made all those who knew him a better person, and his impact will live on long after his passing. I know he will be missed by all, and my prayers are with his family and friends. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. And now a minute to the gentlelady from Hawaii, Ms. Takuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I chuckled when Ken mentioned pet peeves and names. We need to add quinoa and potatoes to that list. He definitely didn't like those. And for the record, my nickname was Barracuda. So figure that one out. God works in mysterious ways. And in the face of disaster, I found a friend in Doug. Doug and I didn't agree on a lot of things, but we always showed up for each other. We co-sponsored bills. We worked on disaster funding and rural health. We traded a lot of jabs and took funny pictures of each other in our ag hearings. Sorry, Chair. I gave him Spam musubis, and he brought me my favorite lemon almonds from Orville. I'll never forget November 8th, 2023. Doug stood here on this floor, and he marked 5 years since the Camp Fire. I was marking 3 months since the Lahaina fire in Maui. And he came up to me, gave me a hug after, and he said, we're going to get through this together. And I believed him. I still do, and he gave me hope. Doug and I are two very different people. It would have been the most unlikely of friendships, except that he was one of the kindest, most gentlest, genuine people I've ever met. I don't know about you, but the house floor feels a little less warm and a bit empty without Doug. But maybe I just miss my friend. To his wife Jill and the LaMalfa Ohana, our prayers, our aloha, and our love are with you. May you rest in aloha, my friend, until we meet again. Thank you, and I yield back.
Mahalo to the gentlelady from Hawaii. That's thank you for the stenographers that needed clarification on my foreign languages today. To the gentleman from Kansas, I now yield a minute. Mr. Mann.
Thank you. Gentleman from Utah. On Tuesday, this chamber lost a kind friend, a loving husband, a proud father, and a tireless advocate for rural America and the western United States. Representative Doug LaMalfa brought joy and sincerity in the halls of Congress every single day and fought for the good of Northern California. I first met Doug in freshman orientation. Of course, he was a more senior member than I was, but we go to leadership elections, and because LaMalfa was near man in the alphabet, I sat right behind Doug, who quickly introduced himself to me, found out I was from Kansas, spent 3 minutes digging through his phone to find pictures of a road trip that he took in one of his classic cars right through Kansas. And 7 minutes later, I walked away from Doug very aware of all of the stops that he had made in my great state. From that moment on, I was always the man from Kansas. During our time together on the House Ag Committee, Doug routinely brought the priorities of farmers and ranchers in his district directly to committee hearings and roundtable. His multi-generational family farm grounded him in his beliefs, making him an even better advocate for the abundant agriculture producers of California's 1st District. Audra and I are praying for Doug's loved ones as they grieve through this tragedy. Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed." It is our prayer that Doug's family, friends, and his team would feel that closeness as they honor, and we all honor, his life and legacy. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I now yield a minute to the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Mary Miller.
Thank you. Doug was one of the first friends that I made when I joined the Agriculture Committee back in 2021. I soon learned that we had a lot in common. We were both 4th-generation family farmers with a shared love for the land, which we call home. Doug was also one of the first members to join my congressional family caucus and was a strong advocate for parents and children. One of my funny memories was somehow we were having a conversation about what we would do if we had to bug out of DC, and he offered to give me a ride in his classic Cadillac, I guess he had here, and give me a ride to Illinois as he headed to California. I was deeply saddened to hear of his passing. Because Doug accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior, he is now in the presence of the Lord. I'm praying for his wife Jill and their children. May they receive comfort from the promise of Revelation 21:4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. Doug, we thank you for your friendship, and we will carry on with the work that you started. He will be missed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. Now a minute to the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Rose.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from Colorado for yielding and for claiming this time. It is with a heavy heart that I rise today to honor my friend and colleague, Representative Doug LaMalfa. He was a true champion for rural America and a staunch supporter of our nation's farmers. I often describe Doug as a gentle giant. You'll hear others say that. He was tall and broad enough for me to assume I better not mess with this guy. And his impact on Washington is just as giant. But I suspect many of us will remember his gentle side the most. Members of this body, including myself, often counted on Doug's lighthearted comments for his moments of levity. Doug always handled himself with the way we would all aspire to. He spoke calmly, with conviction, and with his constituents top of mind. Representative LaMalfa fought hard for the issues that mattered to California's 1st Congressional District and for farmers broadly across our country. As an 8th-generation Tennessee farmer, I found it easy to relate to Doug, a proud 4th-generation rice farmer. Throughout our service on the House Ag Committee, I appreciated having a partner with similar perspective and values as we worked to set ag policy. I learned quickly to trust his instincts. I'll miss that. Doug and I were avid competitors, and I will miss that as well. Long before I served with him on the Ag Committee, I came to consider him a very worthy opponent, and I will miss those days very dearly as I move forward. I want to close by extending my condolences to his family, including his wife and children. While Doug will be missed here, I can only imagine how he will be missed at home. We'll be praying for them in the days ahead. Thank you, and I yield.
Mr. Rose and Mr. LaMalfa shared that rivalry with our Vice Chair time, and I thank you for spending some time with us tonight. On to the great island of Guam, I yield a minute to Mr. Moylan.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and service of Congressman Doug LaMalfa, a dedicated public servant who spent his career standing up for rural America and the communities he called home. A 4th-generation rice farmer from Northern California, he brought a deep understanding of hard work, responsibility, and service into public life. Those values guided him as he served in California State Assembly, the State Senate, and later in the United States House of Representatives. In Congress, he was a strong and respected voice for agriculture, natural resources, and rural communities. His colleagues recognized that commitment when he was unanimously elected chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus. I had the honor of working alongside him as a colleague and a friend on the Natural Resources Committee, where his connection to the land and the people he represented was always clear. His work strengthened rural communities and left a lasting mark on policies that affect them. My thoughts are with his loved ones and the people of Northern California. May we honor his memory by continuing the work he cared so deeply about. I yield.
Thank you. And now a minute to the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Blake, appreciate you doing this evening. It's truly an honor and a privilege for me to join my colleagues in honoring the life and the legacy of our good friend, Doug LaMalfa. Throughout my time in Congress, I worked hand in hand with Doug on the many issues that face the American West. He had a love for his work. He had an understanding as a fellow farmer in the value and the rural way of life, and he fought to protect all of those things. When I stepped down as a chairman of the Western Caucus, Doug was the clear choice to take the gavel. He was elected unanimously to lead the caucus into its next chapter. Truly, Congress and the people of California's 1st Congressional District have lost a true advocate for the issues that we all face. But Mr. Speaker, Doug was much more than a colleague. Doug was a dear friend. He had a kind soul, a sincere love for all of the people in his life, as you've heard this evening. And while Doug may have towered over you as you shook his big hand, you were never small in his eyes. He was humble, generous, a loyal friend, liked by everyone he met. You know, I'm going to miss Doug's big grin as he always greeted me as Lieutenant Dan. Joan and I are going to truly miss Doug. We send our deepest condolences to his wife, Jill, their 4 kids, during this incredibly difficult time. And I thank and ask all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join us in honoring the great work that Doug accomplished over the years. And may we preserve his legacy. May we be more like him, and may he rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. And now a minute to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman.
Thank you. When we heard that Doug passed away, I asked several people the same question. They all agreed overwhelmingly. If something were to happen to this institution, and only 10 of us survived, we had to build it up from scratch, Doug would be one of the 10 people we'd want to start out with, and maybe one of the top 5 or maybe even the top 1. But everybody around here knows what a special guy Doug LaMalfa is. I used to have a lot of discussion with him around this time back in the parlor, talking about the bills today, how to vote on this or that. And as a politician, you can't help resist when you decide how to vote on something. What's the politically right thing to do? What politically will help me get reelected? I never heard Doug talk that way. Doug always talked about the right policy, I'll do the right thing, and I'll sell it back home, which is one of the reasons why I think he's so special. Another thing that was so special in all the conversations I had with him, I never remember him saying anything negative about anybody. I say a lot of negative things about people, so I'm really jealous of a guy like Doug LaMalfa, who manages never to say anything about anybody. One final thing, the other thing I know about Doug is we met every Thursday morning in a Bible study known as Capital Ministries, which was really a Bible study for the erudite Christian, a man of deep faith. And I'll tell you, Doug, a lot of people talk about it. He was just such a good Christian. So in any event, a great Christian, a great congressman. I'll never forget Doug LaMalfa.
Thank you. A minute now to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor my friend and my colleague, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. Doug was always a steady voice for his district and a principal member of this House. He was serious about policy, direct in his approach, and deeply committed to the people he represented. But anyone who has worked alongside Doug also knows he had quite a sense of humor. You see, I learned that early on. Doug and I both did a lot of 1 minutes. And he used to intentionally leave this speaking podium raised up to above my head to remind me of how short I was and how tall he was. But you know, that small moment says a lot about Doug. Doug worked hard. He took his job seriously. And he still found room for good-natured humor and friendship. Tonight, we thank Congressman LaMalfa for his service, for his leadership, and the many moments he shared with all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you, and I yield a minute to the gentlewoman from Utah, Ms. Malloy.
Thank you. It's hard not to smile when I stand here and talk about Doug LaMalfa, even on this really difficult week, because Doug always made me smile. From the beginning, he made me feel like I was really special, and I've learned this week that that is maybe the least special thing about me, because everybody here felt like they were Doug LaMalfa's best friend. The night I was sworn in as a member of Congress, I started getting texts on my phone from a number I didn't recognize, and they were pictures of me being sworn in from an angle that looked suspiciously like the House floor, which is against the rules. And I promised him I would never tell anyone where I got those pictures, so I'm not going to tell you. But I still don't know how he had my number the minute I got sworn in. He's never missed a chance to get me to sing Utah's state song with him, whether we're in an airport or on the House floor or walking through the tunnels. And he never failed to accompany that with jokes from my cousin Vinny about the Utes. I hope that hearing all of these memories and all of these stories that people have of Doug will comfort his family, his staff, and everybody else who's missing him at this difficult time. Because even though I'm smiling, I am deeply mourning for my friend Doug LaMalfa. And I yield.
In a minute to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Bentz.
Thank you. I rise to honor Doug LaMalfa, my good friend. His office is right across from mine, and his district is right across from mine in California from Oregon. This meant we worked together over and over again on issues involving water to try to save it from the misguided grasp of misguided environmentalists. He was a great friend and an incredible advocate for his district. He did his very best for his constituents. He never gave up. He focused on wolves, water, forests, and fire. May my good friend find solace in heaven, and may his family find comfort in knowing he was a man of integrity, faith, truly deserving of our honor and our deepest respect. I yield back.
Thank you. Gentleman, yield to a minute to the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Fulcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am honored to join my colleagues this evening to honor a dear friend, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. Being from the great state of Idaho, the land of famous potatoes, I am the one the good congressman referred to as Mr. Potato Head. I had the privilege of working with Doug on the pressing issues facing the West and America's rural communities. There are no adequate words to express my sorrow upon learning of his passing. But his legacy and spirit lives on. And my prayers are with his wife, Jill, and the entire LaMalfa family during this time of unimaginable grief. And from Mr. Potato Head to that rice farmer from California, here is my final. Way to go, Idaho. God bless.
Thank you. The gentleman from Oklahoma, I yield a minute, Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, my friend. Obviously, like all of us here, I'm here to pay tribute to our dear departed friend, Doug LaMalfa. You know, I first got to know Doug before I ever met him, because I had so many Indian tribes from California calling me saying, we've got this great guy running for the House of Representatives who we know from the state legislature in California cares about who we are, represents our interests, understands the trust responsibility. American Indians, Native Americans, had no better friend in the House of Representatives than Doug LaMalfa. But then as I got to know him as a person, in addition to a political figure, I understood why people were so attracted to him. The sheer decency of the man, the sheer authenticity of the man, and frankly, the happy warrior style that he approached every single issue with. I don't think I've ever been so shocked in my life when I learned that we'd lost him, because I know he's coming back to fight the good fight for the things in which he believed, the state which he loved, and the institution which he cherished. So I want to add my voice to the many voices tonight that remind America that we lost a great American, that we lost a great Californian, and we lost a great human being. So my prayers are with Jill and the family. My thoughts are with his constituents, because they lost somebody who each and every day came to this floor determined to advance their interests, to protect their values, and to make this country stronger and better. I'll miss Doug LaMalfa, but I'll miss what he stands for and what he fought for and how he represented those things more than anything else. Yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. To the gentleman from Arizona, I yield a minute, Dr. Gozar.
I thank you. I rise today, like every other person, with a heavy heart to honor the life of my dear friend and colleague, the gentleman, the giant from California, Doug LaMalfa. Doug was a devoted public servant, a fierce advocate for rural Arizona, or America and the West, and a man who deeply loved his country and the people that he was honored to represent. As a lifelong resident of Northern California, he understood the land, the communities, and the values of his district in a way that cannot be taught, only lived. He fought tirelessly for the farmers, the ranchers, and the communities too often ignored by the coastal elites. And he did so with candor and conviction and a sense of humor that made even the hardest day feel better. Doug was more than a colleague. He was a friend. He was a brother. His leadership, his wisdom, and his heart for service will be deeply missed. Doug's legacy of faith and service and love endures. Lord, accept this gentle giant, this dedicated giant, Doug LaMalfa, as may his family have the goodwill to know that he lies in your comfort. I yield back.
Thank you. In a minute to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Rouser.
I thank my colleague and friend, and boy, do I have many stories I could tell, but I will not. No one cared more for the people of California and for America than Doug. As a fourth-generation rice farmer, he was the true embodiment of a steward of the land, and a great steward of common sense, too, I might add. He understood the needs of rural America and had such a genuine desire to serve the people who lived there. Doug and I worked closely on many issues, but one of my fondest memories was hosting him in North Carolina for an agriculture roundtable. He engaged with my constituents, speaking their language and truly listening to their concerns. Doug LaMalfa, he stood tall, both literally and figuratively, for the people who feed this country. To know Doug was an honor and a privilege. His absence will have a profound void in this chamber. This body and the nation will miss him deeply. My prayers are with his wife Jill, his children, his grandchildren, and the entire LaMalfa family, including his great staff. I thank them for sharing him with us in service to our country. I yield back.
Thank you. Now a minute to the gentleman from Montana, Mr. Zinke.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in tribute of our friend and colleague, Doug LaMalfa. When I arrived in Congress in 2015, I noticed a large man with long hair. He was a big man, but the biggest thing about Doug LaMalfa was his heart. As secretary, I got the opportunity to tour his district that had been devastated by wildfires. I walked with him and looked at the devastation, the despair of people losing their lives and everything they had. And Doug knew them by name. He cared. He cared about every member of this institution, but more importantly, he cared about the people he represented. He cared about their life, their values, and represented them as well or better than anyone that has ever served this great body. Today we mark the passing, but also the privilege of knowing a great man. It is my hope, Mr. Speaker, that we all learn from Doug LaMalfa and understand that we represent the people. We give prayer to his family, but take solace, we know that Doug is with his Maker. I yield back.
Thank you. In a minute to the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I stand before you with a heavy heart to honor the life and legacy of my dear friend and esteemed colleague, Doug LaMalfa. Doug's sudden passing this week leaves a void not only in this chamber, but in the hearts of all who knew him. To a person, a testament from everyone who's crossed this path would be this: what a really good man. As a member of the Western Caucus, I witnessed firsthand Doug's fierce advocacy for the farmers, ranchers, and hardworking families who form the backbone of our nation. It was inspiring. On the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, I saw the same tenacious commitment to his beloved state of California as he championed water rights and fought for the conservative values at the very core of our American culture. Doug was a steadfast warrior for the country and state he loved, and he will be surely missed. His faith, grit, and authenticity have inspired us all. Rest assured, we will continue to carry on the torch that Doug championed so well. Doug, we know where you are at this moment, and our prayers with you, with Jill, your family. Rest in peace. May God bless you, my friend.
And a minute to the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to rise this evening with my colleagues to honor Doug LaMalfa, one of this body's best members, and to join in remembrance of his life. Doug was a dear friend whom I will miss. He was a talented and trusted colleague who was serious about his work representing his constituents as he was constantly seeking to move policy that helped them and our nation. Doug was a rice farmer, an occupation that he loved and that in many respects was foundational to his work ethic, his love of the land, and his love of the people in rural communities. More than anything else, he was a faithful follower of Jesus Christ. I will miss Doug in our weekly Thursday morning Bible studies. I will miss his humbleness, his even temper, his humor, and his presence in this body. And I will miss hearing him call me Gary Francis Powers after the U.S. spy plane pilot who was shot down over Russia and captured in the 1960s. My wife Ann and I are praying for God to comfort and encourage Doug's wife Jill, their children, his family, his staff, and all who, like those who have gathered in this chamber this evening, who knew and loved Doug LaMalfa. I yield back.
Thank you. And to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, I yield a minute, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with a heavy heart to share a few words about my dear friend, Congressman Doug LaMalfa. Doug was a husband, father, and a fourth-generation rice farmer, and he dedicated more than 20 years to public service, both in this House and in the California State Legislature. Doug was a giant in both stature and character. After meeting Doug, you couldn't help but being struck by his kindness and gentle manner. He had a reputation as an affable colleague, a principled legislator, a fierce advocate for rural America, and one heck of a muscle car driver, which I experienced firsthand. And all of them rang true. Doug was an expert on farming, forestry, water issues. He chaired the House Agriculture Subcommittee on Forestry and Horticulture and was chairman of the Western Caucus. We traveled the country together, coast to coast, north to south, meeting with men and women who feed this great country, and memories that I will always treasure. He was supposed to be with me in Pennsylvania this weekend, and his presence will be sorely missed. In a town full of self-important figures, Doug was authentically normal, and I will certainly miss his wisdom, his sense of humor, and incredible friendship. I turned the tables on Doug when it came to nicknames. I affectionately named him the Governor of Jefferson, and he eagerly accepted that. Doug was a man of great faith, and I find comfort in knowing he was welcomed into the arms of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Rest easy, brother. We'll take it from here.
Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent for all members to have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material into the record on the subject of my special order hour.
Without objection.
As a member from California, I'd like to yield 5 minutes to my colleague from the great state of Utah, Congressman Blake Moore, so they can continue honoring Congressman Doug LaMalfa.
Without objection.
Sincere appreciation. Thank you very much. Great way to honor Doug. I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott.
I just want to say Doug was a kind and gentle giant. He was firm and fair. He was wise, and he was funny. I remember one day in the Ag Committee when he spoke for 5 minutes. He spoke so long, he finally remembered that he forgot to leave the people any time to answer his questions. And it was a pretty funny moment for the committee. And he laughed about it, and he didn't make that mistake again. But I'll tell you this about him. 100% American. Local sheriff's department asked for help with people who knew how to operate diesel equipment, and Doug showed up. Doug's the one, he's the member of Congress that you saw on camera getting on a bulldozer saying, "I love the smell of diesel power in the afternoon. It smells like victory." Doug LaMalfa and only Doug LaMalfa. Thank you.
To the gentlewoman from North Dakota, Ms. Fedorchak.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to be here today as a freshman member. I didn't know Doug long, but I met him on one of our first days in the orientation sessions and the planning sessions for Congress. He was warm, he was friendly, he was helpful to a new freshman who didn't know much. From there, I learned how fun he was. He loved to play with my last name, Fedorchak. He used to say, how much wood could a Fedorchak chuck if a Fedorchak could chuck wood? And it always made me laugh. But I also learned quickly that not only was he fun, but he's thoughtful, he was pragmatic, and he was really, really a good thinker. And I turned to him on issues that I found to be difficult to get his thoughts on them. He was a strong conservative, he was warm, kind, and principled, and in my mind, he was exactly the kind of leader that Americans want. He is going to be dearly missed. I feel robbed that I didn't get to work with him more, and I will keep him and his family in my prayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. And to our final speaker and a close friend and colleague on committee, a minute to the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my friend from Utah. There's a lot of symbolism that's happening at this point. The bipartisanship, thank you very much for the yielding of the time. It's a reflection of what really should happen around this place, that we love and help each other and try to find common ground, which is a great representation of what Doug LaMalfa served, how he served. He was a man of the people. He served his people well. He was a man of the land. He loved his land. He loved his rice and would talk about it with me and everybody else here regularly. He also loved people sufficient to give them nicknames. And my nickname had something to do with the villain in Ocean's 12. I was the Night Fox. I don't know if I agree with that characterization. It was the guy that did a break dance across a laser dance floor to steal things, which maybe some around here would think that that's the kind of person that I am. But I knew it was all in good taste and a good effort. Doug gave nicknames to everybody. I'll point out the last thing about Doug is he loved his country. He knew that on the top of the Capitol Rotunda was a statue called the Statue of Freedom. Doug served not only his people, he served his God. He certainly loved both, but in serving his country, understood he was serving freedom. And I hope I, as well as all of us, can live up to Doug's standard of service, his love for people, and his love for God. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time, and I yield back.
Thank you. And to close, again, I thank the gentlewoman from California for yielding us a few more minutes to finish out these thoughts about in Doug's memory. But I just wanted to give a quick closing message to his wife, Jill, and there's 4 children, Kyle, Allison, Sophia, and Natalie. I get an hour every week to do these floor messages. I'm lucky to get 5 members to come. I try to fill up 20 minutes, 15 of which your dad would actually take, and he would go on and on. I would try to get him to wrap up so I could go to dinner. But he was always there for me. Tonight, we ran over time with the amount of people that wanted to come and take time out of their very busy schedules to come and share a brief message. Sit for an hour to spend 60 seconds reflecting on your dad and your husband. I hope you can take from that some sense of appreciation and connection that we all have with your dad, and what an amazing man he is. And with that, I yield back the remainder of our time. Thank you.